Hello, good evening, and welcome to the forum. I got in there first. Phil was dying to say it, but I said it first. We don't know who's hosting, don't we not, Phil?
Tá mé kaint an askelge an ocht Neil Berle a gwt so Vilkman bienvenue.
I think you said something like, I don't know English in that. Did you say that in Irish?
Chat.
Oh, okay. So if you don't know English, I definitely don't know Irish. So this could be a long hour, where we just try to work out what each other is saying, in different languages, which would be the crack. But no, what we're going to do tonight is, it's a little bit different on the forum tonight because some people are at work, some people are on holidays, and some people are just not available. So only me and Phil. So what we decided was we bring 3 or 4 topics, and then we're just going to let all of you give us topics as well to talk about. Now, not random topics like me and Andy are going to talk about tomorrow night, which is going to be, it's always different. We're talking football topics that me and Phil can debate, because me and Phil rarely agree on anything, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's one of those. But Phil, I want to talk to you about the Newcastle takeover, because I know you're intrigued, especially by, now I know these aren't American takeovers, but you're intrigued by when this sort of thing happened, what their thought process is behind it. But a lot of people are, going down the route of the human rights thing. Newcastle fans are just delighted to have rid of Ashley, who's being linked with Derby County, by the way, this week. What's your take on it? Because I'm just looking going, they've done well. When all's said and done, they've done well here.
My take is simple. Success covers up every type of human rights abuse or bad thing that an owner can do. And ultimately, nobody in the Newcastle fan base, and to be fair, nobody in the English mainstream media will be talking about potential Saudi Arabian human rights violations if Newcastle win a Champions League and win a league trophy, because they don't pay attention to what's going on with PSG and the Qataris. There's nothing being said about the guys in Manchester City, despite the known sports washing that's going through this thing at the moment. This is as big a sports washing fund that can get, and the fit and proper test is a joke, right? There's no point in having it. They may as well just let anyone take over a club. Like, all the short of doing is, if Kim Jong-un decides to take over a club in the Premier League, why would they not let him in? The only one that's going to stop them now is if Johnson, and Johnson will be desperate to get people in with money into England now at this stage. You have trucks or something like that. If Kim Jong-un said, I'll get you a load of truck drivers over there tomorrow, he'd be able to buy any club he wants.
Yeah, because on the Newcastle thing, like about a year ago, we heard about Amanda Staveley and this consortium looking to take over, and it was the, it's whatever they call themselves, some independent fund or whatever they call it, right? And I thought the fit and proper persons test was what was holding this back. Basically saying, listen, we don't like where the money's coming from, and we know it's a consortium, but we're not happy where this is coming from, and we're not willing to let this go. And then when last week came, or over the weekend, I think it was the Athletic broke it, and I was like, BN Sports, what the fuck is going on here? And I was like, are you telling me now that because I think it's BN Sports are allowed to be transmitted in Saudi Arabia now, is it? Or I don't know. There's something to do with BN Sports, right? And they've cleared that up, and now it's all good to go. The sort of way I was kind of going, well, are they different people now? Is this a different makeup? Is it a different consortium? It's the exact same thing as what happened. Now, I kind of, like Bojan says there, the issue was about copyright, and that's being cleared up, and that's absolutely fine. Jono said it's the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Yeah, thanks for clearing that up. For me, Phil, I kind of, like Kev says earlier, just money grab. It's a money grab, like, get all this money in, like you said, and the fit and proper test, like you said, it's not worth the fucking paper it's written on, is it? And I want to say that in the context of it's happened. I'm not fucking here going, oh no, I'm not giving out. It's just a bit weird the way it's going a year later. What they're talking about being sports copyright thing, and that now it's all good.
Look, most of them are hitting this in the head. It's like, this is a country buying a club, right, to put as much money into it as possible, who will then use the club to advertise their country, right? Be it for their products, destinations. Think about what City have done. Etihad Stadium. You've got Etihad, who with a pretending sponsorship deal.
Millions of quid on flowers around the stadium, which was my all-time favourite.
Like, making up statues that cost 10 billion or whatever it was, so they can put money into the club. It's just going to be the same thing. So, there's and this is where I wanted to go with the topic. It's like, I don't want to. I'm finding it very difficult to be interested in football, and I said this a while back. In the summertime, the year we won the league, I felt like we completed football, and I know people think that that's mad, right? But just the way we won it, and I just thought that was probably going to be the last opportunity a club will be able to. And we're not a club that's come from nothing, by the way. Let's be honest about this. We were the biggest club in England for decades, right? We were the highest spenders in England. We were the equivalent of what these looked like back in the 80s, because we were breaking the records for all the players. We were the Man United of what is today. Because if you look at Man United as a commercial entity, it makes no difference whether a state-funded entity or anything comes in. They have as much money as they need to spend on anyone that they want to spend it on, be it wages or whatever it is that's there, right? And I thought we were probably the last. Ourselves and Leicester may be the last of the clubs that can actually build something to become something. Because if these lads come in, they can hump as much money as they feel like at this, right? I've seen things about FFP and stuff. FFP is dead in the water. There's no replacement yet. And the guy who's replacing the FFP rules is the fella who runs PSG. It's like, anything he comes up with is going to basically allow the Saudi Arabians to do whatever they want at Newcastle, because he's going to be doing the exact same thing. So there's other two ways that this can be dealt with. From a fan's point of view, it's irrelevant. You can have all your protests you want. You can do everything that you want to talk about, protest, walk down the street, whatever. But it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference.
I don't think it does. And I think, like, I don't think there's much argument with the human rights issues. I don't think there's much argument there, but I'm no expert in it. I've just a small bit of read. There's no real argument. You couldn't sit and go, no, there's not. But I'm not an expert in anything. I'm being honest with you. But reading that, I kind of go, can't deny that. But if I was to look into owners of clubs elsewhere in the league and the world, I'd probably find something that I could stand up against the Saudi stuff and say, well, why are they owning? Like Motasir Ali says, BN Sports is a Qatari-based Saudi and Qatar, not on the best of terms. So Saudi banned BN Sports, who hold the rights for all Premier League in the Middle East. Saudi had to unban BN Sports to clamp down on piracy, and that's obviously what got through. But, like, aside from that, my point of view on this is that what's going to happen just for the Premier League is Newcastle are going to be a force in the Premier League. People that think they're not, I think, are mad, because, like you said, they'll come in there and they'll say, right, like, first of all, that there's meant to be a clear separation. The people on this independent fund, or whatever they call themselves, actually, the people on the board I read the other day are actually like 5 ministers from Saudi Arabia, the government ministers. Like, there's no separation. But look, that's the Premier League's fucking thing to sort out or let go or just not look at, right? What's next for Premier League clubs, Phil? Because, I've read stuff like 6 or 7 or 8 Premier League clubs have demanded an emergency meeting with the Premier League and the FA and whatever else over this, and I'm kind of looking, going, why? Because if with them 7 or 8, if another crowd came along tomorrow and looked to buy them, they'd be pushing to say, well, we're getting it now. Do the Premier League clubs have a leg to stand on? I want to see where they want to go with this. Where did he move? What's their next move? Because I think Chelsea will be egged on by this, and City, and they'll buy and they'll spend, pushing prices all the way back up again, and then what do the rest do?
Again, it's naive to think that they make noise, right? But anyone so who are the real clubs that are going to make the biggest noise about it? It's going to be the likes of Arsenal, Spurs, and ourselves. All right. Let's be honest about it. We're going to make the biggest noise saying this is a lot of bollocks.
Bejan Klopp says, and a couple of others, have just corrected me, and that's cool. They said all the other clubs wanted to meet Gav. It was reported 6, 7, or 8, I think it was, but all of them wanted to meet. So go ahead, Phil. Sorry.
Yeah. So look, all Newcastle is going to do is do exactly what Chelsea happened at Chelsea at the start of the noughties. What's happened in City since the end of the noughties, right? They're just going to follow that model of horse as much money into it, create mad sponsorship deals, and pretend that it's real, and they're going to spend massive amount of money on players. The real impact of this is that for us anyway, we want to be consolidate where we are at the moment. So the biggest risk is to an Arsenal or a Tottenham. They can suddenly become another Aston Villa. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Aston Villa, although when you say I don't mean that with any disrespect, it actually is the most disrespectful thing you can do.
Yeah.
But it's like they're a yesterday club, right? So that they had this time period and now they don't. And
who have an extremely rich owner, by the way.
Yeah, like Stan Kroenke, you know, people don't realise how rich
Villa, I mean.
Villa, yeah. And
Villa
even
have
at
an
Arsenal,
extremely rich owner, yeah.
Like Arsenal, Stan Kroenke is worth billions. You know what I mean in terms of what he is, and he is a property specialist in the States, and he's after going and building that SoFi Stadium that both the Rams and the Chargers play out. But like his interest is really in American football. It's not. It's at the moment his focus is not on Arsenal or England. It's on America. So, you know, the only difference is what this facilitates Newcastle to do, and what does that do to the top six. Okay, so at the moment you've got ourselves, Chelsea, United, City. We're batting above. Well, we're not. We're in the top four, but we're batting above where we should be in the top four based on the wealth of the owners and how the club is being run. Okay, then you've got traditionally Arsenal and Spurs, and then you've got Leicester, who've been hanging on to the coattails and just by really good recruitment and decent enough management have been thereabouts. And it's
great investment in their infrastructure as well, the training grounds and stuff, yeah.
So the question is now, what happens next in reality? Okay. Do FSG want to play the same game? Okay. Or do they care? Or do they believe their model is their model? And as long as Liverpool are able to compete to be in the Champions League, that's all that matters, because this is an asset to them. And the asset, once it's generating interest, they know that if you're thereabouts, at some point you'll get a run, right? The chances is about converting your run. It's like, you look at it, since they've come in, we've had 13-14, we've had 17-18, we've had 18-19, we've had 19-20. You know what I mean? And eventually we got over the line. And if you look at what the Red Sox did, they've had down years, and then they've had years where they've won the World Series since FSG have been in charge. So again, I just think it's a different mindset. But when I come to football as an overall proposition, if it just becomes a race of the biggest arms, which I believe it actually is,
I think that's what it's getting to, yeah.
I think the clubs were incredibly fucking thick to be as jellyfished to bend over and just walk away from the ESL. To collapse the way it did, because that would have consolidated their position. Right?
Well, that's the thing, because, you know, my feeling on it is that, and this is just purely from a footballing sense, and what I've seen happen with Chelsea, what I've seen happen with City and PSG, but that's not in our scope most of the time, because we're looking at Premier League. And what I look at is, I genuinely think that these boys aren't coming in. 300 million quid is nothing to them for a start, right? That's why they've gone for that level of club. 300 million quid is like pittance to them, all right? I think they're going to come in, and I don't think they're going to be, you know, this, like somebody said there earlier, they were laughing at Amanda Staveley, saying that they wanted gradual improvement, but wanted to win the Premier League in 5 years. That's not a gradual improvement. You know what I mean? That's just a huge improvement over 5 years. That's like, it's about probably 10 times what Klopp has done, you know, since coming in 2015. When I look at it, I just think to myself, they're going to do what I think they're going to do. Is going to come in, they're going to put loads of investment in by saying, you know, is there a Saudi airline? Yeah, well, cool, right. That's on the short. We're going to call it St. James's Park, but we're going to call it such and such, and we're going to say it's a 500 million quid deal over 5 years, and the short sponsors are 500 million quid over 5 years, and nobody can do fuck all about it, because it's a sponsor, and it comes in, and it doesn't come directly from that fund. That's it, right? That's simply it. That's what they're going to do, and they're going to drive everything back up again, right? Now, there's nothing me or you can do about that. But when I look at the likes of City, right, especially their owners, now they're worth about 1/10 of what these boys are worth. But City are going to go, we're not having that. We're not having that. So we're going to go out and we're going to spend a load of money. All right. And Chelsea are going to do the same. Now, unless Abramovich loses interest like he did for a couple of years, but he seems to be back on the wagon again. So they're going to do that, right? So the thing for me is, I think you're right. When you look at the likes of Spurs, who've invested massively in an unbelievable stadium, an unbelievable facility, the best in the league, in my opinion. I don't care about attendances. That is the best in the league for me. Facility. to go and watch a football game, right? You have Arsenal, who spent a lot of money this summer, have a huge owner in Kroenke, who seems to be a little bit detached. And what do they do? And then I look at Liverpool. And when I look at Liverpool, I say to myself, people are saying we're somebody said there, we're a cruiserweight in a heavyweight division now. And we probably have been that for the last 4 or 5 years since Klopp has come in, where we're punching above our level simply because we don't spend what these people spend. We've a brilliant manager. And people make the point that once Klopp leaves, what will we do? We'll find somebody else and we'll probably be really good, or we could be shite. We don't know. But from that model, Phil, I look at FSG and I think to myself, and United to a certain extent, I think the Glazers will make a move I think Glazers might make a move and decide to get out of this now, right? Because they were taking so much out of Manchester United and getting away with it because only City were really around with the mega money, and Chelsea, right? And getting away with it to a point. And now there's another person in town doing the same. The ease in which they can take money out of Manchester United gets much harder. You know what I mean? Because you're going to have to spend a lot more to stay on a certain level, and that means they're taking out less. Plus, they're looking to sell so many percentage of shares, which will bring them around 160 million quid. And on top of that, they haven't paid a penny of their own money for Manchester United. They've taken 1.5 billion out. They haven't spent a penny on it, and they've possibly 2.5, 3 billion asset there, where they just go, it's going to cost us too much to spend to stay at that level. Let's get out of here. But with FSG, I think it's a big question over their model. Now, I'm not having a go at FSG here because you get into an FSG in and an FSG out thing. I'm just looking at it from a purely footballing sense. FSG have done amazing work for Liverpool on and off the pitch, but can they keep up now? Because it's not just keeping up with 1, it's not keeping up with 2, it's possibly 3 and possibly 4 if Manchester United put their ear to the ground and go for it. What do you think they do?
Well, I think you've got about 2 years before Newcastle are challenging for the league. And I know people forget the 5-year thing, right? I think their approach in the summer will be to hoover up as much English talent on about 3 times the wages they can get anywhere else, right? I think, when we were talking about, well, Bellingham would look like a great player for Liverpool. We won't get near him, right? I think they'll go big there. I think if Sterling's available, they'll offer him 300 grand a week, right? He'll take it and he'll go there. I think they'll go after experienced top-end English players. Harry Kane, I would put massive money on Harry Kane to go there, and I think they'll go after a big manager. I think they're going to go after a Simeone, a Conte.
Conte is meant to be the fans' favourite anyway, but it could be an issue that they can't. How much are they going to be able to do in January? They're second bottom in the league. They're in serious. There's a serious chance he could go down. And you've a squad of players there that think, I'm not going to be fucking here next season.
But when you say, like, what can they do in January? They can do whatever the fuck they want. But this is not they could spend 300 million in January. They could go and say, what's Haaland's buyout clause? Right? Seriously.
Yeah.
And Dortmund say it's 250 million. There you go.
But can they do that?
Yeah. They're not in Europe.
That's true. But if they were to do that, just let's just say hypothetically, Newcastle go on a run there where they win 6 of their next 7 or 8 of their next 10, just for argument's sake, right? We get around the turn of Christmas and they're sitting 9th. Say for argument's sake, they're sitting 9th. And they go and they do that. They do what you say. And they go on a great run. And out of the second half of the season, they pick up 10 wins and fucking 5 draws in 19 games, just for argument's sake. And they get into the Europa League. They're in Europe then. Can anyone turn around to them and go, well, you spent all this money, you can't get into Europe. You don't match FFP.
Because if you want to go the FFP route, they haven't spent that money over the last 3 years.
Right. So it's filtered over 3 years.
The accounting period is 3 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's
and it takes in the pandemic period as well. Normally it's 2 years, but because of the pandemic period, they're allowed to roll in 3 years, right? They're also allowed to increase their losses for those 3 years. They can go and spend whatever the fuck they want. Because they don't have to worry about Europe. They can do whatever they want, right? And I can tell you, guarantee you one thing. If they spend $1 billion in January, just say mad things, right? Just say mad, absolutely mad things, right? They spend $1 billion in January and then spend another $1 billion in July, and they get into the Champions League next year. There's not a hope in hell UEFA are going to stop the team that spent $3 billion in the course of 3 transfer windows going into the Champions League, because when they've spent that money, the likelihood
they've all the deadly players.
They've all the best players in Europe, right?
And they want to see it on their platform.
UEFA want to spend. They'll want this because the buzz and the anticipation. Look at what happened when Messi went to PSG in the last window, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was talking about, oh, that's going to break FFP. No, they're giving them 500 million a week. It's going to break FFP. No, they're talking about there's people queuing up. Nobody queued up in PSG ever before, ever. They were queuing up to take pictures of Neymar and his man and his sister and everything. That's what they weren't buying jerseys. They were queuing around the corner to go into. They don't care. This is about product. It's about selling product, and that's where I think where football will lose. Maybe for the older fan, maybe for me, right? That's where they're going to lose us. Right? But it will attract the younger fan. It will attract the ultimate team players off FIFA. It'll attract the FIFA generation. And that's more so than anything else, because that's who they're trying to attract. And I genuinely believe the interest for the likes of Qatar, the Emirate lads, these lads, is because they know the Premier League are talking about moving 2 or 3 games a season to a place that isn't England to have these games. The same as the NFL have taken these games away from America to bring the product across the world and to sell it across the globe. And they want their country on display. They are going to spend big to get Manchester City to play in wherever the Etihad is that they live in, right? They're going to play, the PSG will want to play a game in Qatar, right?
Yeah.
The Saudi Arabians will be saying, well, hang on a second. If those lads are getting this massive product down and people are, there's a camera on this only saying positive things, look at this amazing city, look at all this thing that's going off, right? That's where they go, no, that's what it is. And I believe the problem is once these lads get into the Champions League, right? Once they get Newcastle into the Champions League, nothing is off limits, right? Nothing. I think Kev O'Sullivan makes the point. If they want Alisson, they can put as much money in front of Liverpool as they want, and they'll get him. And there's a price for every player in the world. Every player in the world, right? If they want to go and take Mo Salah, I don't believe he'll go, but if they wanted, they're staying, and nobody will be going for Origi. Yeah. You'll be able to sell Newcastle.
Well, if Tarkowski's being linked, Lingard's being linked. I've seen somebody said that in the chat actually. Paul Smith said he heard he can spend up to 500 million in January to feel like it, because actually spent hardly any money while he owned the club. Obviously, because they were coming out like literally in profit nearly every year.
Go again.
Didn't.
Again. Forget 500 million, $1 billion.
Yeah, but, I suppose you're right. It'll all just come down to, don't get me wrong. I think Kev's right. Any player, no player or club or whatever is off limits. It'll all come down to a player saying, I want to go there. What are they about? But money does talk. It absolutely does. But what do you think, though, Phil? What can you see? Like, I think Chelsea, and I said it before, I think Chelsea and City will bite on this and look to really compete. And I think that's bad news for everybody else who have, like FSG, that run on a model, and like Manchester United that run on a model. Manchester United is the biggest money making football club in the world. There's no doubt about it. Simply because what they done in the early to mid 90s, with the infrastructure they have, probably not the training ground, because I don't think it's ever been good. I think they train at the Cliff and Carrington. I don't think they're massively rated. But with regards to Old Trafford, it's 77,000 odd people are in Old Trafford, and they were just mega worldwide when everything clicked, and the world became, you could get the world at a touch of a button. In probably the mid 90s, they just went bananas, the sort of way. So they're a money making machine. But can you see the likes of Glazers or the likes of FSG turning around and going, this is a race we can't win, regardless of how good our manager is, regardless of how good our model is, regardless of how good we are with money, or how attractive we are as football clubs? This is not a race we can win now, and it turns into mega sovereign ownership of football clubs. And that's the only way you're going to be able to compete. And that's what's going to happen in the end. And we lose the likes of yourself and whoever else that feels that just this is getting fucking stupid now. I see, again, it's about models, right? So whenever you get the right blend of recruitment, manager, and money, you get results. Doesn't make a difference, right? We've spent a lot of money. People say, net spending on it's true, but we spend a lot of money on players, right? Yeah.
It doesn't go well with the narrative, but we spend an awful lot of money. We make an awful lot of money back, but we spend an awful lot of money in terms of transfer fees, agent fees, and all that type of stuff. There's always going to be the capability to spend. It's just about what can you do. Now the problem is we've already seen it with Manchester City. no matter what anybody else does, they can do the same and they can go bigger if they want, right?
Yeah.
So then the complexion then changes to, does the selling club really just stick out and say, we are not selling at any price, go fuck yourselves, right? Or does the player say, I actually don't want to go there, I want to go somewhere else? That's the only choice that it boils down to, right? And I think in most instances, stick enough money on the table and a player will go anywhere. It's a business. I tell you, I'm using an NFL stand. It's a business. Ultimately, it's a business, right? Football's a business. We as fans, it's not a business. It's something that we support. It's something we follow, and something where we've got emotions attached to it. But for players, it's a business. So I just think when it boils down to it, there's always an arms race. What we were taking solace in was the fact that our arms race had one major superpower, two manageable superpowers, and then us that was sort of in the middle of being, we need a funky model to go and challenge these, but we've just got to the point where our model is just about good enough to keep us in that funky place to allow us to challenge these, right? You throw in another superpower like City and it suddenly becomes twice as difficult, because it's tough enough to beat one. To beat two is fucking next to near impossible. And the best example I can give to you, which is slightly different, but it is, the two biggest spenders in Germany are Dortmund and Bayern Munich, right? Leipzig have tried to crash the party in terms of it. It's a much smaller scale. But for the last 20 years, it's basically been Munich and Dortmund. And if we have two of the biggest wealth funds owning clubs in England, the likelihood is that those two lads will be challenging year after year. And you might get a third rung somewhere along the line, because there's always going to be freak years. The Leicester year is an example of it. We've seen Blackburn and stuff that crash the party every now and then. So in reality, we'll be hoping to be that team that crashes the party, as Arsenal had been for the best part of 10 years under Wenger's second half of his time in Arsenal. You know what I mean? Yeah. They were hoping to crash the party with their model for those down years, and they always missed out. Like, Arsenal should have really won the league the year Leicester won the league. Let's be straight about this. That was their last chance with Wenger to win the league. So everyone's saying they're planning on spending 190 million. None of us have a fucking breeze, because this is all story talk. This is all newspaper talk, right?
Yeah, the proof will be in January if they do go. But you see, I could see them spending quite a lot of money on. I don't think top end players. I think players that they'll bring in that they look to ultimately have a squad players, but enough to keep them in the league. So Tarkowski makes sense. Jesse Lingard, for argument's sake, makes sense. Big impact at West Ham last year when they were struggling a little bit. Came in and was brilliant for them, and he's gone back to United and he doesn't really get a look in. And Lingard was brilliant for West Ham. Like, it was ridiculous how good he was. But I think they'll bring in players like that where they go, look, we're going to strengthen 4 or 5 in this squad with young players they have, like they brought in Joe Willock. You know, they've some good players there. I just think they've an awful manager. You've no clue what's going on. But what I'm saying is,
like, you're naming names there for characters of Emmerdale. Joe Willock.
Emmerdale, yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Down with Paddy and Mandy making a dog or something.
Mandy, yeah, Kane Dingle.
Look at the cows.
Mates with Kane Dingle. But the thing is, they bring in these players. It keeps them in the league, and then they look to go, right, now on top of the 5 we brought in, we're going to bring in really, you know, another level up. We're going to bring in 3 or 4, and then we're going. I kind of get the gradual thing, but the gradual thing will be, it won't be kind of, we'll bring in this squad and we'll build it, and we want to go from 16th to 12th to 10th. It's going to be a gradual thing within the squad where they're just going to try to explode then. You know what I mean? But it's interesting though. I want to know what you felt, because I know you're mad into the franchises and the money involved and how you're thinking of.
Look, I think it just, to fix football now, we need to get rid of domestic leagues. We need to get rid of international football, and we need to look at a system, be it controlled by UEFA or controlled by the clubs, that just changes fundamentally how football is played. And it's not what people want to hear. It's not what people want to buy into. But no matter what we do, that's what you're going to end up getting in some shape or form. The idea of the European Super, I'll go back to. I
was going to say, do you think that's back on the table now, especially with the big clubs looking like the traditional big 6 as they were when, you know, the ESL came around the last time and went into it and pulled out? Do you reckon they're all looking at that going, we're definitely pushing this again because that's our leveler?
I think the only way that this happens is if your man Nasser Al Khalifa feels threatened by the Saudis turning up at Newcastle, and they decide to look at what the new proposed UEFA Champions League is going to be. right?
Mhm.
They'll have a token nod to entrance on merit, right? But a heavier focus on ensuring that the top named branded clubs are in there, which means that he can retain the support of the Liverpools, the Bayern Munichs, the Ajaxes, that type of stuff where it's culture clubs. I can't think of a different, but they're culture clubs as opposed to money clubs. There's two sets of football in this world now, right? There's the money clubs, which is about 5 or 6 clubs that exist in the world, and then there's the culture clubs who've been there until this point. But this is the change in the guard. This is ultimately what goes on. So for what football looks like in 10 to 15 years means that we end up with a load of money clubs, and we don't know who these clubs are at the moment, right? But this was my biggest fear when this was mentioned was that this will get the okay, that this Saudi Arabia takeover will get the okay, and I was delighted when it was put off, but this really just sort of for me, I'm struggling to care.
Well, Red Steve misheard you there, and he thought that Mia Khalifa was under threat from the Saudis. It turns out no, it's Prince Khalif or whatever his name is. Barry London says 100% of the top teams will drive the Super League in the next 2 seasons. I think they might. I think they might look at this and go, you know what, to negate that sort of wealth and gate crashing. Because let's be honest with you. Let's be honest. Those 6 clubs like being the big 6 clubs, and all right, they might have issues with each other about you're spending this and you're spending that, but they're all in a little pack together. That's how it works. You know what I mean? They ring fence that for themselves, and they go, right, well, listen, we might have internal arguments amongst ourselves, but the 6 of us are still in it, and we, you know, they all sit around and talk to each other. They're all in contact with each other. Don't think that they're not, but I think with the Super League, they will look and go, well, hold on, we're going to go for this again because it's 350 million quid a year guaranteed in their pocket every single year, which means that negates anybody coming in with any sort of fund and saying we can spend X amount, because they now know that even if Newcastle go and challenge for the league and get into an ESL on merit, as they say, they're still turning around going, yeah, but we're getting 350 million quid a year. Now, I'm not for it. I'm going to be open with you. I think it degrades league football, and I think the thought of like you think you should do away with domestic football. I'm completely and utterly against that 100%. The thoughts of watching Liverpool at the weekend and league games is what it's all about for me. Love the European stuff. Love. I don't like the FA Cup. Not a big fan. I quite like the League Cup for the certain players that are playing it, but the league stuff is massive, and But I think the thing of people losing interest in football, I think, is huge. But look, it's we'll have a conversation about this in a couple of months' time, I suppose, when the January transfer window ends and we see exactly what they do.
Kev was sort of made a point about this particular owner. He'd walk away if he took over at Liverpool, and I understand his point because he's a man of my age, so you probably get a bit more principled and say, "No, I can't support somebody like that," right? But if the head of the mafia took over Liverpool tomorrow, or Kim Jong Un came in and took over Liverpool tomorrow and put $1 trillion into Liverpool, like 90% of fans wouldn't give a shit. And I hate saying this, right? In reality, as much as we like to take principled opinions and principled views about various different things, if it doesn't impact your day-to-day existence, it becomes a notional thing, right? And if you were a fan of a club and you walk away, as soon as that team starts to win 100-0 in matches and it looks like they're going to win trophies, there's always going to be a part of you that pulls it back, because you're gonna basically separate mentally. You're going to separate the view that, well, that's your man's terrible, he's an owner and everything like this, but this is Liverpool and it's been run by Tommy and Jim and Billy Edwards and all the lads from over there, and they're actually not the same as this. He's like, the money has to go somewhere, and it's actually the companies that are getting in. You get what goes on there. So, like, if the mafia want to come in and take over Liverpool, I'm all for it. Might get cheaper jerseys.
I don't know how I feel about it, I'm being honest with you, but I think it's coming, because I think there's certain steps that you have within a club, and we've gone on about this now for 35 minutes, but it's a good conversation, right? But the thing is, you're at a certain stage with a club. So Newcastle are at a stage now. They've gone from level 1 to fucking level 10 in one swoop. Mike Ashley was just appalling, and any Newcastle. And we had Kendall, the Newcastle fan, on one of the shows last week. She spoke brilliantly about it, about how Newcastle fans felt
Howard
just
Kendall.
getting rid of. It wasn't Howard Kendall. It was a female, and her name was Kendall.
Amazing.
Kendall Rowan. But she's a Newcastle fan. She spoke really well about it, and the biggest thing for her, like, don't get me wrong, she wasn't denying that the money is unbelievable and it's great. But the biggest thing for her was just getting rid of Mike Ashley. because so they've gone from level 1 to level 10. But when you see the likes of, say for example, take a Leicester City, because they're always a good example. Leicester have gone from, a bit of a yo-yo club to a really good owner, really good family that own them, that invest. But they're probably at level 3 or 4, and they could probably go to a level 7 or 8, and then go to a level 10, which is like ownership, which is fucking mental. Liverpool, for me, are at that stage where they're worth that amount of money. They're not an investment anymore. Nobody's going to come into Liverpool and go, you know what, £2.5 billion is a brilliant investment because I feel I can make more. It's not like that. 2.5, they're going to come in and go, you're literally going to end up with somebody that just has fucking shitloads of money. The fella that used to own Amazon, whatever his name is, right? And going, I'm coming in here and I'm putting the money in because I want to be seen as the face of Liverpool. I want to be seen as the owner, and they'll pay that sort of money to be given that title. And Liverpool are at that level where, like or dislike FSG, Liverpool are probably at a level 8 owner. To go to we can only go 9 or 10, and 9 or 10 means literally what's happened to Newcastle United, or somebody that's an individual that has just mega wealth, that they go, I'm paying all that money, I'm going to put the same amount in over the next 5 to 10 years, and I'm going to make them as best as I can, but I'm not getting a return on that investment. It's simple as that. But it's interesting, I think, for Liverpool and United for me, and we'd see what happens over the next while. I did tell Andy,
I still think get the Mafia in. Get the Mafia in.
The Mafia in, right? Okay.
Get the lads in from Sicily to take over Liverpool, right? That'll be okay. We won't know where the money's coming from. That means that we're completely right. It's just it's a nod and a wink. Everyone in Liverpool will be on board because they'd be anti-establishment, right? We'd have our own set of rules. It'd be governed and managed itself internally. It's sort of a bit like socialism. So just get the Mafia in. That's what I say. Give Tony Soprano a buzz.
Okay,
the character now, obviously not the actor, because that would be again
hard. Let's not go there. But Phil's call for the night is bring in the Mafia. So Mafia. There you go.
Sort it out.
Won't need, get through a show without something mad.
Won't need to worry about salary caps. Might need to worry about players' kneecaps. That'd be what it is.
Okay. I don't know if the Mafia is going to work. I'm being honest with you. I know it's a big shout to say that, but I don't think it's going to work.
Sure.
Let me see. Barry says you're a windy uppy tyrant. That's what he called you. But anyway, and Paulie Walnuts is in the chat, and he says he's going to get straight on it. He's going to get straight on it. So there you go. So there you go. So no,
Don Corleone, if you're listening,
give us a bell. DM us.
Yeah, I have a number. I've been on John Henry's yacht, so if you need the phone, I can get you. I have his text number, his phone here.
Okay, right. So we're going to open this up, the next subject, because we're going way too far on that, so we might have to cut down the subjects. But me and Phil have an argument probably every 3 to 4 weeks about the worst football signings ever. Right? It usually comes down. It usually starts with Phil saying Naby Keita is the worst signing Liverpool have made, right? Ever. And I go, no, I don't agree with you. And we go.
I did change my tune. I did accept. For 7 minutes that Keita wasn't the worst one we've ever made.
And then you went back to your original feeling on it.
Right? It's what it is.
Okay, so we're opening it up to the chat. We want to know, not only Liverpool based. We're going to
I don't go Liverpool based. I
want to have a chat about the Liverpool one. I want to have a chat about the Liverpool one and where we are. People in the chat can tell us what they feel is some of the worst signings in history. Now, it doesn't have to be Liverpool. Right, it can be anybody. It can be a fella that signed for 50 million for somebody, and they're just terrible, right? All straight in Juff, Lazar Markovic, Aquilani, right? They're all Liverpool ones, right? And me and Phil will talk about them.
If nobody's bringing up Paul Stewart, I'm going to be very disappointed because he was to change the tone.
Yeah, but it has come out. It has come out in recent times.
Been in the league for 30 years.
Paul Stewart, in all seriousness, suffered horrifically with his mental health while playing football, due to things that happened to him through his life, right? I'm not going to go in deeply into it, but Sanchez to United, says Chris M. It doesn't look great at the moment. It doesn't look great. Sam Tandy says Coutinho to Barca for the price he cost. Fernando Cheese, George Weah's cousin, isn't that the fella that turned up at Southampton? Someone Duke Tunis, wasn't it? And the fella couldn't kick snow out.
Christoph Ray. That was his name. Yeah.
No.
It was, yeah. It was.
No, was Ray not the fella that played for Arsenal?
No, he turned up and he ran on and they gave him a game. And Soona said he looked grand in training. I think he turned up on a Wednesday, and they had an FA Cup match on the Saturday, and it was live on BBC Sport, and I was like, this is George Weah's cousin, and he's coming on. And I think the first like couple of touches, he looked amazing. I think if anybody goes back, he does like a few tricks and everything. So, whoa! And Ali Dia, that's it.
Ali Dia, right? Yeah, I knew it wasn't Christopher Ray. Christopher Ray played for Arsenal.
Oh, well, say he's brutal as well. He should be up there.
Sorry, I read that wrong. Alexis Sanchez to United was a fucking horrendous signing, and the big thing about that is that didn't they claim they got him for free?
Yeah,
because they done a deal with Mkhitaryan at the same time, who was an appalling signing.
There was a fella signed for Real Betis. Now this is one for the chat, right?
Hazard for 100 million. He was on 400 grand a week. That's obviously to Real Madrid.
A Brazilian signed for Real Betis.
The Nielsen.
The Nielsen. Absolute melodian.
The Nielsen was wasn't he? Didn't he go into the 98 World Cup as literally he's going to be the next best player in the world? Because at the time Ronaldo was just ridiculously good, and in that World Cup, obviously Ronaldo breaks down and they get beaten in the final. But the Nielsen, I think you're talking about, went into Betis. It might have been some sort of record signing when he went to Betis. Actually,
he was the world, because you know why? Because
he
took the crown off another absolute terrible signing. But if anyone, this is going back into the 90s, so some of you,
I like going back like this.
Some of you will be too young, tremendous. But I remember that the first time I recognised the most expensive player in the year in the world was when AC Milan signed Gianluigi Lentini, and he was Aquilani's dad. Right, that's the best way to describe it. Right. He was Aquilani crossed with Lazar Markovic, right? And he signed for I think it might have been 15 million, and it was the world record signing at that stage, right? And I think that he had a massive car accident celebrating it, right? Going from Genoa, it was a Torino player, and he had a massive car accident. It was nearly decapitated, I think it was. It was a really serious car accident. He thought he might ever play football again. He turns up at AC Milan, and he is dog shite. Terrible. It just always sticks out. I remember watching Gazzetta Football Italia, and they were like, and here's Gianluigi Lentini, the best player, the most expensive player in the world. And you look at it going, and even then I was looking at it going,
is this a wind up?
Graham Souness has signed better for Liverpool. You know what I mean? Norman, how much would they give us for Mark Walters?
Norman is going back, reading back the years here. He says Gary Bertels, Forest to United. Do you know one Liverpool, I still think Andy Carroll is pound for pound the worst signing we've ever made, right? But
Stuart Downing is. Spent over 20 million on Downing.
Yeah, but Downing's a shout. But I tell you one that really fucking annoyed me. Really annoyed me. And you know why it annoyed me? Because it was around the period of, and it was probably the birth of this last piece of the jigsaw stuff that used to go on at Liverpool.
Yes.
And it was Nigel Clough. Right? Because Nigel Clough signed for Liverpool in 90, I think it was somewhere in 93, right? Now, Nigel Clough was a good player. Right, good player at Forest, played under his dad, and they had the likes of him. They had Ian Woan, they had Sheringham was around at the time. They did a good side, and he was a good player. He was an intelligent footballer, but it was all Clough coming in, and he was fucking desperate. And just watching him play. Now he scores 2 against United at Anfield in that 3-3 draw, if you remember. But Nigel Clough was one that so fucking annoyed me. It so annoyed me because it was like. And maybe it was a bit unfair on him, they're pinning all these hopes on him. But I was going, he's a good player, but don't give me this last piece of the jigsaw stuff. Harry Kewell gets a shout, Liverpool related as well.
I want to dispute a couple of these. The Harry Kewell one is, I think, is ridiculous. I think he cost us 5 million at the time, and it wasn't even massive money in terms of what he was doing, right? And we get to a Champions League final with Harry Kewell. Whether you like it or not, that's what we got. And we win the Champions League with Harry Kewell on the side. He starts in things. So he's going to go back as a Champions League winner and had a big impact. Karius cost us like 4.5 million.
Yeah.
If I told you that Karius was a 4.5 million goalkeeper nowadays, you'd agree with me. You'd say, he's a 4.5 million goalkeeper. You know what I mean? We got exactly what we signed. What I'm talking about.
Free World says the famous Dutch player who played for Chelsea, never got a game, can't remember the name, made a fortune. Is that the fullback? Do you remember? He just didn't play. He just sat there because he had a huge contract.
No, Winston Bogart played 4 games at least. I remember seeing Bogart play.
Winston, I'm trying to work out, is that who Free World talking about?
I think he's talking about the other guy. They sent him on loan. He was a midfielder. Mario something. He was a Dutch international. I can't remember, but I remember. I know who they're talking about. I know. I can see the player. Mario van Ginkel. Do you remember him?
Van Ginkel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Where is he now? I think he went to
Chelsea.
Stoke on loan. He
Chelsea.
can't be still with Chelsea. He can't be. Olakunle 007 says Winston Bogart to Chelsea, 4 games, 50 grand a year for 5 years.
Yeah,
Fucking
Marco
brilliant.
Marin's a great show. He was flying in Germany, came over, did nothing. Chelsea have spent a lot of money, but the one thing I'll say
Yeah,
about Chelsea
but
is
they've made
they
it back,
make the money back. Yeah,
yeah, and going back to the previous conversation, they've actually worked in a certain way now, where despite what they're spending, they're actually self-sufficient now. Whatever way they work, because no, but what I'm saying is they've brought in a certain
sorry.
amount of player, and they've sold so many.
Somebody mentioned that they might get in trouble this room, but that could be a fair shout there from Jeremiah B. Don't stick that one up on screen.
I'll go and look at it.
Right.
Okay. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. I see it.
Yeah.
Shevchenko.
Ryan's with
Shevchenko to Chelsea.
For anyone. Yeah, Shevchenko to Chelsea was mad, but they've done a few mad ones.
Torres.
Remember, they signed Torres. Look them out.
He wins the European Cup though.
Yeah, he does win a European Cup. Remember the Kesman? Somebody mentioned it earlier. Kesman for €1 billion off Atletico. Yeah. He was geek.
Robinho has to be up there.
Robinho has to be up there for Real Madrid. He was absolutely dirt.
Yeah, but Robinho to City has to be up there. Never mind the Real Madrid thing.
So that linking back to what we're talking, Robinho does change the tone for City in terms of being able to attract players from there. Once they get the first one in, like he was at the
willing
end
to take the hit on him because he attracts others.
Yeah, Harry Maguire for 80 million is a very fair show. He is fucking garbage. He's absolutely
United,
garbage.
of course, now are giving out because Harry Maguire is injured, and it looks like the other guy that's really overrated, the fella at the back. What's his name? The French fella.
I'm a van.
Varane.
Yeah.
Yeah, him. It looks like he's injured. We don't know how bad it is, but reports saying he could need an operation, abductor muscle problem or something like that. So, they're giving out. They're giving out to Dicko to LFC, not Air Dicko. He hasn't signed for LFC, but I presume you mean Julian Dix. No, what we're looking for is we're not looking for players that are awful because we could just list them, like no, we're talking Konchesky. We're talking about big money players that come in with massive potential or massive.
Do you know?
People had huge hopes for them, and it didn't happen.
I'm going to throw one out that I'm surprised now people forget about, and the only reason it's forgotten about: Di Maria to United.
Awful. But I think some of these you kind of have to look at who was managing them as well, because Sancho, I think I read it out wrong earlier, but Sancho's an interesting one. Sancho is really, really good, and he's literally in a club that has a manager that picks the same 11 whenever he can, doesn't move away from that, and just looks to put them on the pitch and hope that something happens. And I think Sancho's suffering for that, and I think Di Maria did at the time under Van Gaal. I think it was he suffered, but it was an awful year for him.
To be fair, Laura Duffy's shout Griezmann to Barca, and those transfers, the billions, Ousmane Dembele to Barca, Griezmann to Barca, Coutinho to Barca. They signed a load of fullbacks at one stage, and they were just playing their own kid, a fullback. Sort of from about 2017 onwards, most Barcelona signings have been absolutely poison. And they've ended up being almost bankrupt.
Well, that's where they are now. I think they're about to post 450 million quid loss for the last year. Zed Malik turns it on its head and he says Chelsea flogging De Bruyne. Of course they do. They sell Mo Salah as well. Suppose is there anyone's out there that you can remember where you go? Jeez, they sold him. He turned out deadly. Varane is getting a mention as well.
Yeah, Varane needs to be mentioned because he was to be a combination of a Roy Keane and a playmaking midfielder all rolled into one. And
he was deadly.
He just couldn't get to the pace. He was brilliant in Europe for them, but was absolutely poison in the Premier League. Just didn't like being kicked. Right, Kepa for 72 million is a fair show. Like they're huge numbers.
Yeah, it's a massive number. This is a great one. Julian Draxler to PSG. That's a great one.
Yeah,
because I forgot he even played for PSG. Is he still there?
No, wasn't he at Palace for a while?
No, that's not him. Julian Draxler. No, this is the German Draxler fella. Who are you thinking of?
Julian Draxler at Crystal Palace.
No.
Oh no, Max Meyer.
Yeah, you're thinking of Max Meyer. Yeah. Yeah, he's not there anymore. But
don't know.
Draxler is a great one. Didn't Klopp sign?
The Italian fella, fucking poison. He played centre forward in the middle of the European Championships this year, and he was Gick then, and he was Gick.
Immobile, is it?
Immobile, yeah. Never has a better name for a player being given than him. In fact, Immobile gets Klopp sacked from Borussia Dortmund, even though he wasn't sacked, but like it ends the time. So yeah, Immobile, he's absolutely terrible centre forward. Classic Italian centre forward, the Inzaghi one, where they just don't like. He's around the 6-yard box. The ball is pinging off him, and he throws a leg out and he scores goals, but can't play football for anyone else.
No, Inzaghi was the master at it.
Werner, Timo Werner will be another example of that. A fella who just can't adapt to what's going on. Ian Rush to Juventus is one of the worst signings of all time.
Yeah. Solo Travelers' cack at the Real Madrid didn't work.
Yeah.
Michael Owen met Real Madrid, although he scores goals, he just never fitted in there. He was never going. But Michael Owen to Newcastle United is actually one of the worst.
Yeah.
He actually scores goals. I don't know if he keeps them up, but he does quite well with them. But again, that's another one where you go, what the
Pepe to Arsenal.
Yeah, that's mad.
72 million. I don't think if someone's quotes a price of 72 million, don't spend it, because it's going to end up being a
72
bust.
is the number where you go, this isn't right. This
No.
is definitely your man that played for Southampton's cousin.
How much did he cost? 72 million. No, we're pulling out.
Underachievers. Kev O'Sullivan jumps in with an underachiever in Letitia, who was linked to Spurs every single season for about 5 or 6 years, and it never happened. Mario Götze to Bayern Munich didn't work.
Woodgate to Real Madrid is a bit harsh, because the fella was so injury prone by the time he went, but he was an absolute quality centre back. I remember
everyone I've ever listened to talk about Jonathan Woodgate said he was unfucking believable, and the injuries killed him. A bit like Ledley King, but like I watch a lot of
Woodgate was Van Dijk. Woodgate was Van Dijk, but
he was so good.
Injuries.
He was so good because like I watch a lot of golf YouTube stuff, and like the Tubes off Sky has his own YouTube thing now. It's brilliant. He has all these current and former players playing golf for him, and they get to talking. And Woodgate seems to come up an awful lot, because he was brilliant around the squad. He was brilliant for players, young players as well. But he was so fucking good. Everyone talking about him so good. There was a story about him. They were at Spurs. I'm trying to think who he was interviewing, and basically Woodgate was at the centre of everything. But he got talking about it might have been Jamie O'Hara actually, and he got talking about Woodgate, and he goes, "You just don't understand how good this fellow was at football. He was fucking so good." But obviously the injuries killed him. He did. Fernando Cheese says he did. Didn't he score an own goal? I think it might have been one own goal that got sent off in the Real Madrid debut. I remember that. But he was so good. Thing, but underachievers as well is a good one. Joe Felix to Atleti.
He started off really well.
Million. Being linked with Liverpool actually. This week. There's been more around him. Haven't
Ox
seen
for
enough
40 million is a fair shout as well.
Ox, yeah. I don't think it's worked. I think that injury he gets against Roma and Anfield, it just kills him. Absolutely kills him. And I think the squad's evolved past him now. Whereas he could have been somebody that was part of the evolution of the squad.
We have like Morris Lynham says Marco Branca to Middlesbrough. You could actually do a whole program just on Middlesbrough signings.
Oh yeah, do you remember Ravanelli, Emerson?
Yeah, they were the good ones. But there were so many battles. Like they were.
Well, who was the fella up front? The bald fella.
Remember the gargoyle they signed off Bolton to play centre back? Weiser. He was meant to be
Weeder, yeah.
He was meant to be like the next big thing as a centre back. He basically was a guard. They pulled him down off the side of a cathedral, and he just stood there, and people ran around him all the time. Ravanelli, they signed Ravanelli. He was absolutely appalling.
Ravanelli had a brilliant first season.
Maybe, yeah.
And Ravanelli scored. Ravanelli, they were mad.
There was a baldy fella.
They went down. Yeah, the baldy fella up front,
Macaroni. That's the one.
Great shout by now. And then didn't he sign some fella that scored like 86 goals in one season in
Brazilian fella,
Holland?
Alfonso Alves.
Alfonso Alves, yeah, that was
there was no. It's not Alfonso. It was Afonso Alves.
Alves. Mangala to City.
Bentner to Juventus is a great shout as well.
There's some mad ones that you just kind of go, but you're right. The Middlesbrough one, I'd say if you clicked on like liverpoolhistory.net is deadly for everything Liverpool related, but if there's a Middlesbrough that you went on to and just lashed in transfers between, say, 92 and 99, the list you'd have would be unfucking believable. Afonso Alves, Heron Vane, right?
Yeah,
He scored
that's right.
shitloads. Bosnich to United. That was the thing.
Danny Drinkwater, Chelsea spent a lot of money on him to play one FA Cup match.
Yeah, and he's in. I think he's on loan at Reading. I seen the other day. He's on loan at Reading. Ben Brown says Iwobi to Everton, 40 million. Not having it. Rodrigo to Real Madrid, 50 million. James Rodriguez to Everton is one of the funniest ones I've ever come across. And the reason being, I think he's a good player, right? But he's living off, I think it was the 2014 World Cup where he scored a goal, right? And he's been at Real Madrid. I think he's been on loan at Bayern Munich. I don't even know who Everton got him off because I can't remember who he was playing for. It might have been Real Madrid, right? And he goes there on what's meant to be, I think, like a 2-year loan, but he's gone to, or a 1-year loan, and he signs or whatever it might be. Or he got him for free. I'm not too sure. But literally, he turns up. He does a few good things. He does no sprints in the first 5 games he plays for Everton. None, right? They're all going on. They're like, can't wait to see him. He never plays in front of a crowd for Everton, ever. And then heads off to the Middle East. And I'm like that's a fella that came in and Everton were drooling over. And the big claim, of course, at the time, if you remember, was he's shown up and he has more Instagram followers than Liverpool Football Club. And that was the claim on James Rodriguez, which was unbelievable. Gravison to Madrid. It was brilliant. Free World
Rodriguez going to Everton is one of the best things ever, just for the story as to why he wasn't going to play for Everton ever again. And I'll allow people.
No, we're not going into that either.
I'm not, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that alone was the greatest. Was the greatest reason.
Mendieta goes to Middlesbrough. I loved Emerson, Janino, Ravanelli. I think he got down
Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough is just
it was deadly. What was the owner's name? What was his name? He was a guy from Middlesbrough.
Steve Gibson.
Gibson, that's him. Yeah, that's him. And he was just, in fairness to him, he put his fucking money where his mouth was. Now, they go down. I remember them being relegated. I think it was the last day of the season away at Leeds. And I don't know whether they get bashed or they might win the game and still go down. I can't remember the details, but I was like, look at the players on the pitch. And like, they were flying forward trying to score, and you'd all these players are going, how the fuck are they? They got the 2 cup finals, didn't they? The same year.
League Cup finals.
Beaten by Chelsea, I think, in the FA Cup final. I think they might get.
Do you remember they brought?
This is just about Middlesbrough now. We're just going to have to crack about Middlesbrough for ages.
Didn't they bring Terry Venables in to help Brian Robson manage?
Oh, yeah. They turned around to Brian Robson one day and went, listen, it doesn't look like you're having a great time. We have a fella that can help. And they just brought Venables in and went, he's just an advisor, but he was literally standing on the side of the pitch managing, right? While Brian Robson stood there pretending to be the manager, but not having any input. It was fucking brilliant. It was so good.
Actually, we need Middlesbrough back. Can the Saudis also take over Middlesbrough at the same time?
They were the crack they were. But they were just bonkers. They were just fucking bonkers. And then when you look at some of the mad players come in the league for Bolton, like Djorkaeff, JJ Okocha, Ivan Campo comes in there.
They were great signings though for Bolton.
They were brilliant. And like Allardyce was managing them. And do you remember the time when Allardyce was meant to be like this visionary, where he used to say, right, I'm going to get my player to stand in an offside position, and when the free kick is taken, he's going to stay in the offside position, but we're not going to hit the ball near him, and then we're going to play the second ball and hope he picks it up. And people are like, wow. And he was the first one to be wearing an earpiece on the sideline or up in the stand, and he was talking. It was mad stuff. The Premier League, like, we talk about being taken over by sovereign states and all, but honest to God, the 90s in the Premier League was fucking outstanding for some of the stuff that went on. It was unbelievable. But
imagine nowadays, somebody ringing up and saying, "Here, Jurgen, you're not having a great time." Imagine in January. Look, you're not having a great time there doing the managing, so we're just getting a lend of a fella for a couple of weeks just to help you out, just to get you through this rough patch. You're still the manager.
Fabio Capello was on holiday in Southport and said he's going to come down and give you a dig out. That's literally what happened.
Is he picking the team? No. But he can have an input into maybe the team that you might want to pick at the weekend, right?
Yeah, no, like, it was literally, if you go back and I'm sure if you Googled it, you get a news report and some clips. But it was literally Venables is coming in to help Robson. He's not a manager. He's just he's helping him. And then Venables was on the sideline shouting at all the players, and Robson was just standing in the dugout. It was fucking mad.
I remember this. I
was so
remember
good.
watching the television going,
It
this
was
is
so
insane.
good. It was so good.
Insane.
Kevin Ball says the Monaco DM that Chelsea bought, Bakayoko, isn't he? AC Milan. Wasn't that his name? Bakayoko.
But just on that, some mad signings. So Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he was originally owned by AC Milan and was sold to Saint Etienne for next to nothing. And look what he goes on to do across Dortmund and Arsenal, which is thing in terms of players that they missed. De Bruyne and Chelsea have a great habit of missing out on these top class players as well. Like look at De Bruyne and Salah, what they've gone on to do as well. But like, yeah. Like there's just so much. Chelsea will give you lots of talk. Like they must have spent at least 500 million on absolute flops, right? We can't afford to do it. But yeah, Paulie we're going to say that's the difference. We basically did the exact same thing with Julian and Evans, except we announced that they were co-managers.
Yeah.
The difference with the Middlesbrough one was they pretended that Robson was still the manager.
Just pretended that Venables was like
just helping.
It was like he was passing and just dropped in to see a friend. That's what it was like. The Emerson lad at Borough who looked like the lead singer of Sexual Chocolate from Coming to America. Emerson was fucking deadly. He was so good on his day. He was so good. Jeremiah says Bruce at the Sheffield United for 25 million. It's not going well for him there at all. But some great ones there. Jesus.
But what's left on their agenda? Because I could talk about Middlesbrough all night.
Oh, I was going to do international football and how we fix it, but I'm not arsed now because I could just.
You can't fix international football. It's over. Pull the plug. FIFA won't allow you to, but the sooner FIFA come up with a competition that they can get all the cool players in instead of international teams, the sooner we can just park international football and never have to deal with it ever again. I know people won't like this because the World Cups and all were great, and I love the World Cups when they meant something. But international football is just a distraction and nobody wants it. When you've got Thibaut Courtois coming out and saying, this is ridiculous, and he's playing, like UEFA and FIFA have no interest. Like we're playing Watford on whatever day it is, Saturday, and Brazil, we're playing Watford basically 10 minutes after Brazil finished their match. Right?
Yeah, and I don't think we can get them back in time.
And we're not allowed to get them back in time, and the league wouldn't let us move the match because.
But this is an ongoing thing between Premier League clubs and Brazil, where they wanted them banned. Remember, they wanted them banned because they couldn't travel the last time, and then they ended up playing. And now it's just kind of we're playing now on fucking Friday. Fuck you, it's an ongoing thing where it'll be tit for tat. Kevin Ball says the Haller guy was shy for West Ham, and he cost 40 million quid. There was another one there. Oh, I'll tell you what, the one that missed out, and his name comes up there. Escapado says Lewandowski was bought for 2 million, and wasn't Lewandowski on the verge of signing for Blackburn?
Yeah.
And the fucking cloud from the volcano stopped it. Yeah. And I think Allardyce might have been in charge at Blackburn at the time. I'm nearly someone will clear it up for me, but I'm nearly sure that Lewandowski was meant to be going to Blackburn, and that must be some amount of years ago. That ash cloud. We're talking 10 years ago now, are we?
Still hanging around.
It is. Yeah, but it's still there. LFC Aaron says, what did you make of the offside goal last night? This is of course Mbappe's goal. Did you see it, Phil?
Honestly, no. I wouldn't watch. You couldn't fucking pay me to watch international football outside of a major tournament, right? Yeah. Honestly, I was watching the NFL was at the weekend. Between the college football on Saturday and the NFL on Sunday, you won't get better sports all weekend long. Like when you have the Red River Derby between Texas and Oklahoma, and it goes down to the last play of the game, and it's outrageous. You've got Alabama getting beaten by Texas A&M. Not people, but most people don't know what's going on. And then you've got just crazy games going on between the Chargers last night and the Browns.
I don't have a clue.
The Raiders.
I don't have a clue what's going on, but I love it. Like I know when we start getting into like, there's no quarterfinals and semi-finals, I know that. But when we start getting down to like 8 teams left or whatever, right? I know you'll send me a message going, Gav, the knockouts are on, or whatever you fucking call them, right? And I'll start watching them on a Sunday night. I have that red zone, playoffs, whatever they're called, right? And I'll start watching them. I'm like, yeah, like they're looking at this, and has he landed? I'm like, I haven't a fucking clue what's going on. I just sit and have some crisps and watch it, and I have great crack watching it. And it's actually better watching when you don't understand, because there's an extra element of surprise in it, where you're going, all right, yeah, that happened. But it was unbelievable. Veranda Cheese says the Ash Cloud stopped him from coming here to collect the scratcher. Maybe so, Veranda Cheese. But look, we could just keep going on with these things. But the offside thing, sorry to answer that super chat. It's ridiculous, but it's the rule. And if you go by the rule, it's onside because what happens is for Phil, for the only person in this chat and on this show that hasn't seen it, a ball is played through towards Mbappe, and he is offside when the ball is struck. He's clearly offside. He's probably he's a foot, 2 foot offside. But when it's played, he's offside. But the defender, the French fella tries to play it through to him, but the defender gets to it and makes a movement to it and kicks it, and it goes into Mbappe's stride, and he scores. Right
now, when you say he kicks it, can I just ask?
He makes a deliberate attempt to play the ball, and it continues on into Mbappe's stride, and he scores. Right, so it's the rule. It's a shocking rule, but it's the rule. So if you went by the rules of that the other night, it's a goal. It's a legitimate goal. It's a bit like the one. Do you remember Villa against City, where the Villa defender, I don't know who's offside, a mile offside for City. Ball takes down. City fella or the Villa fella takes it down his chest. It drops to City. He takes another touch. The guy comes from an offside position, wins it, and plays it to somebody who scores. Right, and it's ridiculous, but it's the rule. Somebody says it's bollocks, Gav. It completely is. It is bollocks. Barry says it is bollocks, Barry, but that's the rule. That's the rule. And you see, the thing is, and the best argument I've seen about it was, if you see a through ball going through, don't go near it. If you think it's offside, don't go near it. Don't put yourself near it. It's something that has to be changed, because it happened to Lovren. If you remember at Anfield against Spurs, and Kane gets a penalty. The famous one where the ref and the linesman are talking, and they don't know what's happened, and he says, "Did such and such see it?" And he hasn't seen it, and they just make a decision off the back of it. So it's one of those. It's ridiculous. But back to players that were either sold by clubs, ended up being deadly, and turning up for clubs for 50, 60 million or whatever it was.
Can I just address that goal there?
Yeah.
So what was this game?
It was the UEFA what Nations League final.
Who gives a fuck?
I don't know what they get. Did they get a trophy for winning? I don't know. Or did they get?
It's like the Newcastle. It's like the Newcastle Texaco Bouncy Ball Cup. Like, honestly, it's not going to matter to anyone in the world ever.
They should. No, but with regards to the rule, I think they should change the rule and say, right, okay.
Do you remember when the Harlem Globetrotters used to bounce the basketball with their heads?
No. Is that in a film?
They're doing tricks and doing things that were illegal during the game of basketball. That's what international football is. Nobody cares. It's just something to turn on the television. Honestly, pick a different sport.
Stu Mack has changed things around. He's throwing a curveball. He says Dani Alves, best signing of all time, and he's nearly sure he signs for Sevilla for £250,000. Red Steve reckons I just watch it with a big tub of Haribo. I'm not a jelly man. I'm being honest with you.
Not a jelly man.
No, I'm not mad on jellies. They're fucking too much hard work.
I'd like to give a shout out to Burrito Box in Greystones, by the way. Just if anyone is in the vicinity, get down there. They've done a tremendous thing with the burritos. They make a kids burrito. Now, I'm not saying this to knock their profits or whatever, but if you don't want a full burrito, it's like a half-size burrito. So it's ideal for having a bit of lunch where you don't go over the top.
So they have a burrito, they call it a kids burrito, and they just cut it in half.
No, it's not cut in half. They got a smaller tortilla wrap to make a smaller burrito. But
why don't you just make a normal burrito and cut it in half?
No, because it's messy. Anyone who eats a burrito knows this. You can't just cut it in half. Oh, man.
There's too much gear in. I'm not getting into this. It's too late at night. But there's too much gear goes into a burrito for me. There's loads of mess.
Nah, it's a meal in a wrap. You can't beat it. It's the greatest food ever made. The Mexicans did right there.
Ousmane Dembele, £150,000,000. That's a terrible.
That's him, Coutinho, Griezmann. There's probably that's Manchester City's transfer under Pep Guardiola. Right,
I'm trying to think of some Spurs keep coming into my head. I have a feeling Spurs have made some mad ones as well. Where you go, oh, look at these, who these signing that shy. Oh, I have it. Rebrov at Spurs. Remember Rebrov that was up front with
Shevchenko and Rebrov came at the same time, and both were absolutely geek. Remember?
Shevchenko goes to they're at Dynamo Kiev. Shevchenko, it's around 90. I want to say 98-ish. I want to say that. I could be wrong, right? Maybe 99. and they both leave. They both leave Dynamo Kiev. One goes to Spurs and one goes to AC Milan, if I'm right. And Rebrov was desperate. He just physically, he was so bad. What are you laughing at? Pavlyuchenko there from
And
Spurs,
after Paddy
Soldado.
one up there, take 3 bites out of it and serve.
Oh, is this with regards to the burrito?
To get a kid size.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In fairness to them, just cut it in half and call it kids when people buy
Nah,
it.
it's genius. It's genius.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, well done to them. Well done.
Zeb Malik says, I remember when Gav had a curry, lol. Yes, of course I did. I went to
They also have they've also got ghost pepper salsa, which I had with it, and it's fantastic.
Means nothing to me, but nothing to me. Pavlyuchenko, of course, being shouted out there. Red Steve says we broke Shevchenko in 2005. He was never the same after that. He wasn't even when he went to Chelsea. Lo Celso, 60 million quid Spurs. That's what he reckons.
I don't even know what that is.
Lo Celso's a decent player. I suppose. I think. What's the guy's name? He's still at them. He's centre midfield.
Mourinho.
No, he's the centre midfield. Ndombele. Ndombele looked a cracking player, and it just didn't happen. And I have in my head, I have Leon in my head. Like loads of players have left Leon. Are meant to be deadly, and they're not. But I don't know. Any more before we go, Phil? We've done an hour and 15 minutes. I think we've done a lot.
Memphis Depay at United. That was a massive sign, and he was shite.
Yeah, he was. Probably signed too early.
No, by the way, we signed absolutely loads of cabbages over the years. So it's like
Darren Dunbar says, Radichoyo at West Ham played 11 games, went on a shopping trip, and never came back. That's of course is a classic Harry Redknapp one, isn't it? Isn't there another one where wasn't it Benjani? Benjani was at Portsmouth, and Man City, of course, with their money, put in a bid for Benjani, who was banging in goals at Portsmouth. Not the best player in the world, but banging them in, right? And they done it later on with a guy from Swansea. Who was the guy from Swansea that he signed? The big striker at Swansea that went. I'm nearly sure he went to City. And he was
he was your man that scored 100 million goals for Swansea when Rodgers
was deadly.
He scored loads of goals. What was his name? Winfried Boney.
Yeah. But anyway, back to Benjani. So Redknapp is at Portsmouth and he's trying to get rid of Benjani. He likes him, but he's trying to get rid of him because he's been offered 15 million quid or something for him. And he's like, I have to get this out. I have to get him out of here because I want the money, right? And he has City lined up and Benjani won't go. He won't go. You have to drag him to the fucking airport. And when he sent to the airport, they get a phone call going, he hasn't turned up. Went back. He was still in the airport. He wouldn't leave. He wouldn't. Eventually got him to go. And he was like, come on, Benny, come on. Fucking, come on now. Come on, and I show you something nice. Like, fucking madness. But Harry Redknapp, like, so fucking funny. Some of the stories he comes out with. Of course, Zeb Malik says Harry loved the bit of Nico Crankar. He did. When Nico Crankar turned up at Rangers, I fully expected Rangers to give Harry Redknapp the job just on the strength of them, being together. But Boney, Michu, do you remember Michu was brilliant at Swansea for a year? And I think a couple of years later, he was playing the Tour Division in Spain.
Did he not go to Spurs?
No, Michu, no. No, he doesn't.
Who was the fat Egyptian that used to play for Spurs?
He was wasn't he with Wigan? He was with Wigan as well. He scored a fucking brilliant goal at Anfield.
Is the centre forward?
Yeah. And you see him coming out in the press.
Mido. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
LFC Aaron's in there. Jonathan was in.
Mido loves the burrito. Mido loved the burrito. He definitely didn't have the kids' portions or the lunch portions of burritos. He was going full in.
Chris Sutton to Chelsea. That was a shambles. Yeah, that wasn't a great one.
That's a Borough signing too. Did Mido go to Borough? He fucking did.
Yeah, Mido was at Borough as well. Yeah. I think I have a feeling that he was at, I want to say Wigan, right? And he goes to Spurs, and then I think he ends up. I think Middlesbrough tries to sign him, or maybe he goes to Middlesbrough then Spurs. I'm not too sure, but like they were bringing him in at Middlesbrough, and they were like he's going to be the Vizzo, and he wasn't. Thomas Brolin at Leeds. Of course, Leeds went through this stage of signing mad players as well, didn't they? Because Peter Ridsdale, people hate Mike Ashley, right, and Newcastle, but the stuff Peter Ridsdale was up to at Leeds was just criminal. And I must get Joe Wayman on one night to talk about Peter Ridsdale, because the famous story, of course, is the left back Johnson. you remember him? Baldy fella
Yeah.
at Derby. And he turns up at Ellen Road to try sign, or he is signing for Leeds, and they're going, I think he was on 10 grand a week, and he's like, if I can get 20 out of this, I'll be fucking delighted. Do you know what I mean? And he walks in the door, and Peter Risdale sitting there with £1 million worth of fish in a fish tank, right, in the boardroom. £1 million fucking quid worth of fish. And just literally, Johnson's waiting outside. I can't remember this. Seth Johnson. He's sitting outside while his agent goes in, right? And the agent says, look, if we can get 15 out of this, whatever it was. But anyway, they basically threw 35 grand on the table or 40 grand on the table straight off the bat. Like, we give you 40. And the agent went, oh, not too sure about this. I'll have to talk to him. Goes outside and says, they're in there offering us 40 grand a week. And he's like, right, let's hang around out here for 5 minutes and pretend we're not going to fucking take this. And goes back in and says, all right, go on, we'll take it. He fucking 400% rise he got on his wages. Risdale sitting there with all his exotic fish. Fucking mad, like.
I want to do the next international break. I just want to do a podcast on Middlesbrough, 90s Middlesbrough under.
Yeah, I think we should.
Under Roy Robson.
I think we should do, like we've done fucking 40 minutes on this, but I think we could do easily another hour. Maybe a draft of the worst signings
that Middlesbrough ever made. You could be there for 3 hours.
Do you know what? This was actually a sad one. Luke Nillis signing for Villa looked amazing, makes his debut, gets a career ending, and it was a horrible fucking injury. And Luke Nillis was really fucking good. He was really good. But that was horrible what happened to him. It might have been the opening day of the season. I was a couple of games in, and he just.
I think he'd scored a few goals for Villa at that stage. I think it was the 4th or 5th game in.
Yeah, it was horrible to watch. It was a bit like that one. Do you remember the player at Coventry, David Boost?
Wasn't Shay Given as well that he collides with?
It could have been. I remember the David Boost one, Coventry at Old Trafford, and Schmeichel is fucking doesn't know what to be doing with himself. Bojan Pav says Gav loves Seth Johnson 100%. It's just one of my favourite stories. The fish and literally going in and getting literally. It'd be like buying something for £5 and someone going straight away, here's 20 quid for no reason.
I've only just realised how much I miss Middlesbrough.
Oh, it's so good. Gascoigne ends up at Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
Gascoigne ends up there. They had some crackers. Jonathan says, just do a poll in the 90s Premier League and the madness of it all. Do you know what? That'd take a little bit of research, I think, wouldn't it? Where you go and you just look through the 90s and go, right, mad players, mad things that happens. Like even the thing like today, like the birth of just attacking referees, the Canio, pushing a man over, it's the worst fall in the world. And you're like, literally this, but it was just mad stuff, wasn't it? It was just, the 90s was so fucking good.
But this is the thing, right? And also, you did have players who become fat, right? So you get fat footballers in the 90s, right? You don't have it anymore. There was Neil, if anyone can remember back, you have the likes of Neil Redfern at Barnsley, and also all the other teams that came up and Bradford, and all these teams that got promoted always saw Neil Redfern. And they all got relegated within 9 months. They always ended up with the worst defensive record.
Stu Mac says he's pretty certain that Borough signed Malcolm Christie from Derby as well. The gifts that keeps on giving. I'm going to find a Borough fan and we just sit down and have a talk about this. Because do you know what? You know the way you talk about, the history of the club and all this. And then you look at Middlesbrough and you just go, this is fucking brilliant. Not to laugh from Nillis, collided with Richard Wright, apparently, according to Laura Duffy. Richard Wright would have been. Who was Richard Wright playing for? Ipswich?
No, was he playing for Arsenal? Because remember he signed for Arsenal.
Right, okay. Yeah, that was a terrible meal from him as well. Franny Jeffers to Arsenal. Was terrible.
There's some serious amount of fat players in the 90s. That alone that's a draft.
Right, here we go. Bonkers FC says Merson, Parlour, Townsend, Downing, Woodgate, Paducah, Middlesbrough.
It's just a cesspool. If ever a team,
Paul Ince ends up at Middlesbrough.
If ever a football club represented a town, Middlesbrough is Middlesbrough. You couldn't. It just encapsulates. I think Paul Brennan, R.I.P., when he was on the show, remembers he has a famous story about being in Middlesbrough, the smoggy bastards. And if you can go and find the podcast that he was on, he'll explain there's a whole thing to do. Honestly, that's a phenomenal. Middlesbrough's phenomenal.
The Shaman just randomly singing live in a football stadium on a Monday night. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of things. That was a fat footballer.
Goes to Middlesbrough.
The fat footballer thing has got my mind going now because there was some.
Well, if we can find a way to amalgamate fat footballers, Middlesbrough and the 90s, and terrible transfers, we might actually do it.
Yeah, because the only way I can sort of match up any modern day examples of fat footballers is Hazard. Reina, do you remember Reina had the surgery and came back and was playing for Bayern Munich, and it looked like
Yeah.
he'd eaten his brother as well, right?
Yeah.
And who was the other one that was in my head there?
Dean
So you had
Windass, all
Mario
the promoted teams. He ended up. He played at Middlesbrough.
Yeah, Mario Götze. Mario Götze, do you remember Bayern Munich made up this thing that he had a glandular problem? He never had a glandular problem when he was at Borussia Dortmund with
just
Klopp
showed up. Just showed up when he got the Bayern.
And then just suddenly appears, and he has a metabolism problem that nobody else has ever had in the football thing. Has a metabolism problem, just like Eden Hazard had a metabolism problem, and Reina had a metabolism problem. Remember, Hazard said he couldn't get used to eating all the food at night time over in Real Madrid, and that's why he was just eating pastries and pasta all night long.
But the difference in what he ate was unbelievable. Like I remember listening to a podcast. I think it might have been Ray Parlour, who it was very
Neville Southall. Neville Southall when he plays for Bradford. But remember, he played for Bradford, and he was literally about 23 stone the day he plays for Bradford. He was the goalkeeping coach there.
Yeah, that's right. But Ray Parlour tells a story about when what's his face, Wenger comes into Arsenal, right? And they all go away one of the first pre-seasons, and they're told, right, listen, Wenger was very kind of strict. He said, right, you can go out and you can have a couple of drinks, and you'd be home by a certain time. He said, and like he said, we all went out, we were fucking lashing drink over. He said, we managed, all the French kind of fellas stayed together, you know, the sort of way they kind of stayed together. And he said, we were going around the corner, we're all bleeding locked. He said, and he came around the corner, all the French fellas sitting outside cafes, just sitting there smoking. You know what I mean? And it was actually smoking wasn't frowned upon as much as drinking in the French culture. The lads were like, no, nothing wrong with this, you know, the sort of way. But the difference, and then when you see the change in football, it was like Wenger did change it. He came in and went, listen, what are you doing? You know, the sort of way. But there's so much in the 90s. We should definitely do something on the 90s. 100%. And Middlesbrough being the absolute epicenter of it, because Middlesbrough is so fucking good. I never realised how good it is until I started talking about it tonight.
I think we have two things. We have Middlesbrough 90s football that revolves around Middlesbrough, the Middlesbrough bubble that happens through 90s football, right? And then we have to do a second one on fat footballers. I think there's two drafts, fat footballers, right? Because there's been some great, like Lukaku at United when he just piled on the pounds, right? And you look at him now and he doesn't even look like half the player, like half the size of the player he was when he was at United. That'd be definitely, we have to do something. But Brian Robson and Terry Venables leading.
Do you know what we'll do? We will do. I think the best thing to do, right, is a draft. We get 3 people on, right? What we do is me, you, and somebody else will be a competitor in this. We'll have a host, and we will put forward the maddest 90s transfers to be managed by Terry Venables and Brian Robson. That's what we do, right? And we put 3 teams together and see who wins, right? So it has to be a player in the 90s that was shit. Now, it can't be just shit 90s players. It has to be a player that moved in the 90s for where you thought they were deadly and they were brutal, right? And you have to get a team of 11 and 3 teams of 11 to finish off, but they will definitely be managed by Brian Robson and assisted or just his mate, Terry Venables, hanging around the place where it turns out Venables is actually the manager, but he can't tell anybody. And you know what? It's like one of the worst kept secrets of all time. Like, don't tell anybody that Terry's doing the job, right? No one will notice. And then when you see the kids on the sideline, you just have to go and watch them. It's fucking so good. I'm actually thinking about it. I can't actually get over how funny that was. It was fucking unbelievable. So good.
It's just so good.
Steve McLaren, Middlesbrough. Gareth Southgate goes to Middlesbrough.
What? How can you continually for all those years?
Just Middlesbrough. Just pick all the. Just go through the squads of Middlesbrough from. I think they come in 95. I think, and they're there, and then they go off, and then they come back. But like even
but they were the first money team. By the way, they're the first example of Blackburn, and then were the first money team. So we start. It's like we come back around on this thing, right? They were the first where this money was being pumped in to win.
Alan Boxic, he was at Middlesbrough. I'm not sure if Michael Reisiger was, but Alan Boxic most definitely was at Middlesbrough. It was just mad. It was just fucking mad. And there's another story then that I heard from Parlour. I don't know who gets sacked, right? But Southgate ends up taking over, right? Southgate ends up taking over, and parlour is there, and they're in a meeting, and he turns around immediately and he says, "I want you to call me Gaffer from now on." Right? Imagine going in and saying that to a whole crowd of people, right? Walking in the Middlesbrough thing, going, "Right, team meeting, call me the Gaffer." That's the first thing. The second thing is something was said. There was a comment made, and Parlour
Jeremy.
laughed. He laughed, right, and made reference to something about Southgate's nose or something like that. Joke, because he's mates with him. Do you know what I mean? Playing fucking England together a couple of years ago. He's mates. And Southgate loses the plot completely, tells Ray Parley's to train with the reserves. He never plays for Middlesbrough again. It's so good. Middlesbrough shit. Parley's won leagues and everything. No, you're not playing me. You slag me nose. Jeremy, says Norma. Jeremy was at Middlesbrough. Yeah,
there was
that's it.
two guy,
The
Turkish lad.
Did he play for Middlesbrough?
Yeah.
Two guy was with Blackburn.
No, he played for Middlesbrough as well. He 100% played for Middlesbrough as well.
All right, okay. I'm not sure.
We have to do this.
Yeah, no, we definitely do this. So what we'll do is, right, there has to be an international break coming up at some stage. So the forum during the next international break will be 3 people picking 3 11s from the 90s, but they have to be players that were, these are really good, but they turned out to be shit, right? Most of them will be from Middlesbrough, and we will put them forward for a public vote on the understanding that they will be managed by Brian Robson and
or Terry Venables,
and Terry Venables, who's just there for the crack, right? But actually, you're doing the job, which is brilliant. Rock him back.
Fabio rock him back. It wasn't Terry Venables. Terry Venables was Blackburn. Terry Venables was Colo Touré in the shower.
It was just madness. Just mad. It's so good. Go back and check it out. But we'll definitely do this. I'm going to write it down. And the next international break, we are doing highly rated, terrible fellas from the 90s. Managed by Brian Robson and Terry Venables. That's what we're doing. Right, we have to go.
Here, Terry? What are you doing here?
It's so good. I'm telling you. The funniest thing about it is not telling anyone what was going on, but making it fucking the most obvious thing you've ever seen in your life when you actually come out to play a game of football. Yeah, there you go. Look, Brian, Terry is just here scouting today, says Paddy Wallace. Yeah, he's on a course. He's on work experience. Can he follow you around for a couple of weeks? So fucking good. And like I said, we're laughing, but we done it ourselves. We're actually put a name on it, which was brilliant. But it's actually better when you don't put a name on it. When you don't say anything, you just go in and go, he's just here. He's just here for a bit. It's grand.
Middlesbrough is a classic case study. This is brilliant.
Yeah, I'm definitely going up to look the squad list up for Newcastle or for Middlesbrough between probably 95 and
whenever
2000. 95 and 99. I think the crack is going to be deadly. Anything else before we go, Phil? Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, we'll keep kits for another day. I'm sure when the next kits come out.
Yeah, we'll talk about kits another day, definitely. But the player stuff was deadly tonight. I really enjoyed it. What are we doing this week? Me and Andy are back tomorrow for something similar to this, but we're just talking random stuff. Spoiler alert, I'm going to have a right go off Andy about the brand of his toaster, because he's even got notions on toasters now, which is fucking outrageous.
What, did he get? Did he get a Smeg toaster?
Yes. All right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there is. There's nothing wrong with buying any toaster. It's your attitude when you buy one is the issue.
Right.
And I will be taking that up with Andy along with other stuff as well. We're doing that tomorrow night. We're doing that from 10. That could go till 12 tomorrow night. It really could go till 12. It's all for Sienna tomorrow night. There'll be no subscribe, like, comment. There'll be none of that. There will be literally a link on the screen tomorrow night that you will go to for her GoFundMe to help get her towards that 120,000 that she does need. And that will be tomorrow. Wednesday night, it's the midweek fix. It's going to be me. It's going to be Kev O'Sullivan, Keith, and Conroy, I think, on Wednesday night. We don't know what we're talking about yet, but we have to go back into the serious stuff of football. But I'd happily talk about Middlesbrough for the rest of the week. And Thursday is Carnage with Grizz. Friday is Sports Unplugged. That's going to be me and Kev this week. Avi and Connor have work commitments, so they're stuck. So it's going to be me and Kev O'Sullivan on Friday. Saturday is match day, so we're going to have pre and post match. And we will be back on Sunday with the Fatback 4. It has been brilliant. I think we should do the forum. We're only 2 people from now on. I'm going to be honest with you. Just literally 2 people. talking
Talk
about
about
shy
Middlesbrough.
footballers.
Middlesbrough
Literally, the forum brought to you by Selnet, the Selnet Riverside. From now on,
Hey,
from here on in.
the Selma.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
I remember they used to come up. It used to come up. Sorry, when they got into the league and they had a helicopter flying over the stadium. Like, there's nothing else there. What the fuck? Where have they built this? And there was nothing else there, but it was a bit of crack. Right, that has been it. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon. Thanks, Phil. See you in a bit.
Bad.